people are taking their seats and concluding their conversations, on the screen, you're going to see, for those that are on the screen watching on YouTube, you will see photos of theater performances, because this month we are celebrating theater. We are also celebrating music, so you will hear music. And if you're watching on the screen, you'll also see musicians, and we'll make sure the camera is face towards them, Mr. Gowan, so that they can be captured once we start that. In the back of the room, Visual Arts Month is also this month, so we have art posted as well. Board members who are new, this may be your first meeting with actually having people here. It's so exciting. And so when they're done playing, board members, we just ask if you'd like to get up and join them in a photo. We will take a photo with our young people. Mr. Reynolds, will the young people be here as well at recognition as requested to read the proclamation? Well, then we'll save that photo for the highlights time. But everyone who gets an award, we just ask you to come to the middle of the room to get that photo. And I believe our young people are ready. Mr. Reynolds, did you want to give an introduction to anything?
Hello, my name is Ms. Booz. I am the orchestra director at Topeka West. I'm also at French and McEachran. These are two of my students I've had for a little bit now, Camille and Colette Kluk, and we have violin and viola, and we have a couple little numbers for you just to start us off.
We do have 5 minutes before we start the meeting. So once those our young people put their items aside, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Reynolds to share what is around the room. And we'd like our young people to introduce themselves and share what grade they're in, because the board meeting will begin at 6 in about 5 or 6 minutes. This microphone is a little bit better. So.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Thank you, board members. Today we've got representation from Topeka West High School Strings, and they introduce themselves. I believe both are freshman, sophomore. One's a freshman, one's sophomore. Okay. And then also behind us, you'll see it before the meeting started, we had theater productions from every school that we had in the district. We had representation from elementary through high school of our theater productions as well. In the back of the room, you'll see PK through 12. PK through 12. Also.
Now, Mr. Reynolds, I hate to interrupt you, but we did something a little different. We're just like factual. I think they might be able to see you.
Perfect.
I think I can fix that.
I'll go back. So on the back wall, we have art representation from PK through 12, Jardine Elementary, Jardine Middle School, Hope Street Academy, Topeka West High School, all with representation for artwork. We sincerely appreciate everything that you guys do for us in the Fine Arts Department, and we're very happy to have you guys take a look at the artwork. Please don't eat any of it. If you've been back there, it really looks like real food, some of it. It's actually clay, painted clay. We were talking earlier, if you watch the show, Is It Cake or Not? That's one of those things that looks like real food. Go on Netflix and watch Is It Cake, because you have to guess whether it's a piece of cake or whether it's a real thing. So don't eat the cinnamon rolls, even though they look amazing. The top is self-portraits of kindergartners from Jardine Elementary School. And then over on the left, we've got lots of digital art, all from Hope Street Academy. So any questions from board members today before we get going with the board meeting?
Once they ask a question or two, we'll just turn on the music and let them actually see the artwork that you just mentioned as well, sir. And then we'll be talking to you again.
Wonderful. If you guys want to peruse the artwork, Ms. Bowley.
I've been out with some of the theater productions this year, and I have enjoyed them all so much. And the talent in our schools, even in elementary, is quite amazing.
It's pretty fun to
And to
watch.
see them grow through the years, it will be really spectacular. And to have a live orchestra at Topeka High School in the pit with 6 of our own students, I heard, which is like one of the first for maybe a long time. So,
And Ms. Morse, you might correct me. Oh, I'm sorry. I think that they had alumni from all of the pit orchestra. Yeah, so that's very awesome. It was very cool.
and professionals from the facility, and we've had all kinds of people that presented there. But I was most excited about our students, they were such professional and sounding so wonderful. You did a really nice job with our art. I can't wait for everybody to see the art back there.
I wanted to say also, I thought the room was so impressed, and also at Topeka West, that's right. Yes. Last, and I know there was a freshman playing in the pit. I recognize those. Really, really good. And then it's in 2 languages. And that way did was amazing. And I just put in my calendar today, Once Upon a Time is coming up at State Street. You did really great.
Any other questions from the board? We have about 2 minutes for Jill.
Since it is 2 minutes, and you might not get out your seat on time, right after the highlights, if we could take just a 5-minute break, and then we'll have a little bit more time to walk around and take a look at the art, if that's okay, for these final 2 minutes. I will share this week, we learned something new. This was new for me. There is a teacher at Whitson who is starring in the Civic Theater at this time and play. And when I emailed him to congratulate him, I learned that he was a former person on Broadway in New York. And Mrs. Pierce hired him some years ago, and it's his first teaching job from being on Broadway. So we certainly have quite the seasoned professional talent that's been skilled in this work, as well as talent that we may just stumble upon that's shining across Topeka in other ways. And as it's 5:59, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Williams. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, everybody. Go ahead and get started. Next item on our meeting agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, so we will be sharing the pledge with us today.
We do, and they're virtual, so our Randolph third grade student will be presenting the pledge. Oh my, oh, we'll get ready and we'll turn it over to you. You have a beautiful smile.
So after the pledge, we'll ask you some questions, but we'll turn it over to our student, Ms. Goldberg.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to show the certificate. That was one of the best pledges I've heard all year, Ms. Goldberg. You did a great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to show you your certificate, and I'm going to turn it over to the school board who may want to ask you some questions. We'll deliver this to you tomorrow. It says Topeka Public Schools recognizes Sarah Julia Oldberg for service at the March 24th board meeting for presenting for the Pledge of Allegiance. Excellent job. We'll take that off the screen so we can see that beautiful smile, and we'll turn it over to our school board.
Sarah, amazing job. I wonder if you could tell us what grade you are in and what school do you go to?
I am in 3rd grade and I go to Randolph Elementary School.
Well, that is awesome. Any other questions of our board members here? What's there? Mr. Taylor?
What was that?
Hi, Sarah. Do you have any idea
Hi.
what you might want to be when you grow up?
I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up.
Oh, wonderful. Good choice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Mr. Martin. Sarah, what's your favorite part about the school day? You go to school.
My favorite part about the school day is probably math.
It's great. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. As Dr. Anderson said, you have a certificate coming your way in appreciation for leading us in Pledge of Allegiance. Hopefully we will see you very soon in our schools.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Moving on to the next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion for adoption of the agenda?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
There's been a motion to adopt the agenda. Is there a second? So we just got here that on the end, we have a second here. Could we go ahead and have a vote?
The vote is open. Thank you. All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, everyone. Moving on to our next item is the school highlights. Dr. Anderson.
Well, this is the most favorite time of the year, of the board meeting for me. And so as you can hear this, I'm going to ask Ms. Morrissey to go to the microphone to start us off. And we have some special young women who are making history and have made history in Topeka Public Schools and at Topeka High. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Morrissey to talk about our leadership and our coaching staff and in our student body.
Mr. Munoz, Ms. Bowley, members of the board, Dr. Anderson. It is really a privilege to be here tonight. It's been a long time since I've stood here, so it is wonderful to be in person. It is wonderful to celebrate these two gentlemen and these three young ladies. It's an event that is personal for me. We are in the 50th year of Title IX. I happen to have been a first in my generation. My grandmother did not get to play sports. I was a first in terms of playing basketball. I was the first college athlete for basketball from my school. So it is fun to be 50 years into this and having been the first. And along the way, I want to say goodness to these two gentlemen as well, because along the way, I'm standing where I am because of the men in my life who made sure I had those opportunities and that I was successful. And I'm standing here as a principal, I believe, because of my participation in sports. So it is with great pride as a mother of myself, but a mother of these kids as a Topeka High mom, to be able to celebrate these young ladies tonight. So if they would all move up here, what we are celebrating is a first ever They just did add women's wrestling, Keisha did, as an official sport a year ago. And of course, we were unable to participate last year. So this is the first year that Topeka High women were able to participate as an official Keisha sport in girls wrestling. These three young ladies are the first to represent Topeka High School in the state tournament. They all medaled at regionals, and they are the first two of them to actually get state medals. And I'm going to let them share all that, the coaches share all this. I'm going to begin by having each of them just introduce themselves, and then I'll introduce the coaches who can then share more specific information. But it is a privilege to be able to celebrate this evening.
Hi, my name is Ingrid. I am a freshman, and my name is Ingrid. I'm a freshman. I placed 4th for regionals.
I competed in the state tournament for state.
I competed for state, and it was a great experience.
Hi, my name is Marielena Zuniga. I am a junior at Topeka High, and I want to thank my mom and stepdad for coming here and to listen to me. And I placed 3rd at regionals, and then I placed 6th at state.
Hi, my name is Rantasia Logan, and I'm a sophomore at Topeka High. I'd like to thank my grandma for watching. And I played 2nd at regionals, got a little answer, but placed 4th at state.
And I'm going to introduce the coaches so they can talk a little bit. Roger Mena is our official girls head coach this year. He's been assisting prior. And Tony Canterbury is officially our head men's coach. But they partner in the process of coaching all of our men and women. So gentlemen, if you'd come up, if you'd like to say a few words, Roger. And then I'm sure you'll have some questions for them.
Hello, thank you for having us. One thing I'd like to really probably emphasize is that there's been girls wrestling here in Topeka 501 for many years, actually, but they've been having to compete with the boys. And so really for me, and I've been coaching wrestling a long time and coached a lot of girls that were put in that position, and they didn't have a separate girls state tournament, didn't have separate girls tournaments, but they stuck it out and all that. So for me, those girls are the trailblazers that allowed these girls to actually have a state tournament, have regional, and has actually brought wrestling to where it's at right now. So, so once again, and wrestling is such a great sport because of the individual aspect of it. And once again, you step out in that circle and it's you and your opponent. I think it's a great life tool for kids because once again, it's you having to make decisions out there, having to win, having to take the losses and all that other stuff. But once again, these 3 girls there work extremely hard. And we're really, really excited about the future because they're all 3 coming back. And we've got a bunch of other girls, our whole wrestling team comes back. And we've got a lot of other girls that are really excited now about coming out for wrestling. So we're really anticipating kind of an explosion in numbers next year. So really excited about the future of the program. And, once again, Ingrid, Marlena, and Brantasia, all 3 are extremely tough young ladies, and they're very talented in the classroom as well. So that's one thing I really want to emphasize, that coaching boys and girls, it's a little different. With the boys, you really got to worry about their grades. With the girls, I don't have to worry about their grades. So this is really nice. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm Coach Mena. I'm the head girls coach. So what I want to start off with is I know I have the title of head girls coach, and that's been really awesome, but I would not be here without Coach Cam. Coach Cam has been one of the biggest role models of my life. I'm not even exaggerating with that. He's taught me about coaching, what it means to be a good coach. More importantly, like outside of coaching, I just be a good leader in general. Ooh, don't want to break the mic. be a good leader in general, right? So I really appreciate Coach Ken carrying. I mean that wholeheartedly. Just to reiterate what Coach Ken said, these three girls work super hard. This is one of the few sports where you can't hide behind anything but yourself, right? It's a one-on-one sport, and the beauty of all three of these girls early on this season, because we didn't wrestle last year, I mean, racked up a few losses, and then to come back and beat all those girls that had beat them early on. Marlena knocked out two girls in the state tournament that beat her early in the season and ended their season, so that felt kind of good. Especially because some were from my alma mater, so that's even better. And then for Tasia, like she said, to be a very first-year wrestler, like never competing in the sport, and to play fourth in state against girls that, like Ken said, have been wrestling almost their whole life, to beat girls like that was a big deal. And Ingrid to be our only freshman to qualify for the state tournament. I mean, I just couldn't be more proud of these kids. I feel so fortunate to be their coach. I'm a lot more emotional than Ken, so I won't cry or anything like that. But I do feel very honored to be their coach, and for Ms. Morrissey to bring me in and let me be a coach in this district and this school. Just it's an awesome experience, and I appreciate everybody involved in our sport and parents coming to support and things like that. So I probably rambled too long, but I appreciate you guys. So, thank you.
I'm gonna throw a quick plug in now. Oh, one more. Real quick. If you can, come watch these girls wrestle next year.
Please.
I tell you what, this girls wrestling is so exciting. It's so intense. It's a lot different than the boys. The boys just kind of let themselves, whatever happens to their opponent, all this. The girls are cheering each other on. You even have other teams cheering each other on. It is a super, super intense environment, and it's just a lot of fun. I'm telling you, the girls are really, really fun to coach.
Our students for free to address some questions. However, first I want to give you the certificate. Normally I give the certificate in the middle of the room, but it's up on the screen. Are we okay with me going to the middle of the room? All right, this way everybody can see you. So, Ms. Loggins. Peacock School District recognizes respondents for excellence as part of the first state qualifying female wrestling team at Topeka High School. And I'm going to make sure I'm saying this right. Ms. Marlena Zuniga, the Peacock School District recognizes excellence as part of the first state qualifying female wrestling team at Topeka High School. And Ms. Ingrid Cabrera. For excellence as part of the first state qualifying female wrestling team at Topeka High School. Very end, and we have let the board members want to ask you some questions. If you want to get a photo, some things, so please get up. And then we'll be taking a photo with the full board at the end after the next two recognitions. But I'm going to ask you some questions. Can you come back to the microphone? And we're going to turn it over to the board with questions that you might have.
We are incredibly proud of you all on your accomplishments. When we had different decisions to make when it came to sports and who could play and who couldn't, I knew that wrestling was large difficulties. So see you all have the success. We all can be more proud of you all. Are there a couple of questions from our other colleagues here? Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations, girls. I think this is an awesome opportunity. You guys are really blazing some trails here, and I think that's absolutely incredible. I wanted to ask you collectively, because I have a daughter who in a few years she'll be where you guys are right now, and she's already had experience wrestling, and she's good at it. She's really aggressive. What advice would you have for her in going into maybe do wrestling at the high school level?
I would say just to keep your head up and just keep a positive mindset. That's all you can do. Not give up on yourself mid-match, because doing that, you're just gonna let yourself down and then you're gonna feel bad after it. So I just say keep a positive mindset through the whole match and just keep going, keep
through. If if you don't have the outcome you want, you still know that like you gave it your all. So
the advice I'll have to give to her, like you said, she was very aggressive, or she's good. Just being in the room, practicing and stuff. When she gets out there, there's going to be certain people watch her, and then they're going to be like, oh, I bet you can't do me like that, wrestle me like that. I tell her to get out there and break the boys' necks for sure. Because it's going to be the boys who's going to say that to her. And like, don't go easy and don't let up on nobody when she get out there.
Right.
I would have to give her advice to never give up. There always will be losses and wins, but you should always keep your head up.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
Ms. Schmidt.
Okay, so other than the wrestling skills themselves, what other types of skills have you gotten by participating in wrestling and competing?
me personally, I have gained, I believe, leadership because I became a team captain this season. I feel like I've built good teamwork along with other team captains on our team. But personally, most of the wrestlers on the team, they've kind of looked up to me knowing I've made it this far. Also just missing a school year of wrestling and being one of the first females to join wrestling when it first got established. So a lot of my friends on the team just kind of look up to me like, yeah, you made it this far, you know, you can do whatever you want. And yeah, so I think one thing I've just gained was a lot of leadership through this season.
And I like to give Marlena her props because I heard about her year before. She said she only got like 2 wins for the season. I was like, ain't no way I would have came back, but she came back and like placed in state. I was so surprised when I heard that. And what I had gained throughout the season is it would be like speaking, publicly speaking, or like just talking in general. Because even now, if any teachers at my school watch this, they're like, ain't no way she talking like that. It's like, yes, I am. Yes, I am. But yeah, publicly speaking and like even following, being more like following in like good footsteps, like Marlena, listening and like hearing her story. So yeah.
I would think that I would be a really good, kind of like a leader, but a miniature mod. Miniature mod. I don't really know.
Sue Campbell.
Congratulations, Brintasia, Ingrid, and Maria Elena, Maud. So I know you go by Maud. So proud of the 3 of you. And I know Maud because she was one of the few girls who ran cross country. So that was impressive, very, very impressive. And my question is, well, Maud, I know that you are thinking that you want to be a PE teacher, right? Is that still the case?
Yeah.
Yes. In Topeka Public Schools?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So all of this amazing, the wrestling, the cross country, the other sports you're doing is going to prepare you very well as for your future as a PE teacher. And for Brintasia and Ingrid, my question is, do you see this like what you're doing with sports and wrestling anywhere in your future?
Well, for like the future, like wrestling, I'll say like in colleges, I'm very interested in it. Especially like if I see like they got the scholarships going on, like, yeah, I want one of them. And like I can see myself like mentoring or like coaching the sport, but as far as the future, I'll say like wrestling will probably stop for college. And then like I want to travel the world, so I'll get all around the world after that.
I really see myself going for wrestling in college, maybe getting a scholarship, working hard for it.
Well, again, we congratulate you as we prepare for our next awards. And without great coaches, we can't have great players. So we want to thank our coaches for all that you do in support of our young people. And ladies, you have made history to see three powerful ladies, all of different sizes. So seeing the quiet, soft leadership, the individual who is quite the speaker, who you shared public speaking was a new piece. You speak better than me in public speaking. And to see a future and be able to meet you as a future PE teacher 4 years or 5 years early, I am so privileged to be here. So again, congratulations. Ladies, we ask for you to hang around for about 5 minutes because we're going to finish our final 2 acknowledgements, and the board will take pictures with everyone that was acknowledged tonight. So can you hang out for about 5 or 10 minutes? Thank you. At this time, we'll be reading our music, theater, and visual arts in our schools month. So our students that you heard this afternoon, they're going to come on up. And I believe they're sharing this floor with, are they sharing it with you or are they reading it all on their own? All right, so the proclamation is right here. It looks like you both came prepared with one as well. I'll turn over the floor to you to begin the proclamation. You want to introduce and share your name?
My name is Colette Klug and I'm a freshman.
My name's Camille Klug and I'm a sophomore. Proclamation of Topeka United School District number 501, Music, Theater, and Visual Arts in our Schools Month, March 2022.
Whereas the study of music, theater, and visual arts contribute to young people's development through heightened skills in listening, reading, self-expression, and creativity, and whereas music, theater, and visual arts education in schools includes a broad range of students' works and active artistic experiences. And whereas the arts significantly enhance the morale and quality of schools' environment, and whereas it is the state objective of public schools to prepare children for a productive role in our society. And whereas the respective national educational organizations have designated March 2022 as Music, Theater, and Visual Arts in our Schools Month. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of United Schools District number 501, Topeka, Kansas, does proclaim March 2022 Music, Theater, and Visual Arts in our Schools Month.
You all were excellent. Now they're going to want to ask you some questions, and you're going to have to come a little bit closer, and they won't bite. Just come on up a little bit closer, or I'll hold it closer to you. Okay. So we're going to turn it over to our board members. Now we've read our proclamation, and to answer some questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Questions for our 2 students here. First off, tell us, how did you get involved in music, and how did you select your particular instrument that you play?
So our mom is a music teacher, so I was kind of always around music and instruments. And I chose my instrument because it was different than the violin, basically. Yeah.
Kind of same thing. We were kind of brought up in it a lot. And I chose violin because it was kind of like what a lot of people were doing, but it seemed to be like very high in pitch and unique in that way. So.
Well, you all play beautifully. Are there other questions, Mr. Hitt?
So I'm just curious, a lot of times people who are musical play multiple instruments. Do you play multiple instruments now? And if not, do you have a desire to learn other instruments?
I actually just play the viola right now. I used to play piano a little bit. I want to start playing that again and maybe learn guitar.
I somewhat do guitar and piano, and I want to go on to learn the ukulele.
Dr. Schumacher. Yeah, so as somebody that very much enjoys music, I know the role that music plays in my life. So I'm interested in, how that affects your day to day and what role it plays in your life. And also I'm interested in what kind of music you guys like to listen to. And it doesn't have to be classical.
So music affects our life daily. Like we have a lot of music classes. And so we do it a lot during the day.
I would say that probably more so classical. I would say it's more relaxing to listen to, or like kind of not tragedy music, but like music that it kind of takes you through all these different emotions and like it tells a story.
That's great. Thank you.
And so you have the proclamation with you, but now we're going to turn it over to our music director, our fine arts coordinator, as well as the coach who's kind of brought in throughout the years. Really our band director? All right, I'm going to turn it over to her. So in fact, you want to come up to the podium and ladies want to slide down.
Any questions for Ms. Booth while she's up here?
I'd love to learn more about yourself and how you got to where you are.
I come from a family that is very musically oriented. My dad was in a band and my mom was a theater major. And they always fostered that with us. Not just music, we participate in sports and stuff too. They really just wanted us to participate in a lot of things. And music was the thing that always stuck. And I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't know if music was going to be what I wanted to teach or not. But then as I got into high school, I really fell in love with it and liked how it could make a difference. And it just seemed like the natural path for me.
Mr. Tatum.
Thank you. Ms. Booth, am I saying your name correctly?
Booze.
Booze. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, very, very cool. Thank you for your work with the students. Just was going to ask, what all are the instruments that you play? You said you come from a musical family. I'm assuming you're probably musically talented. You have some talents of your own. Just curious as to what other instruments you play.
Yeah. Well, I can proficiently play all the string instruments. So bass, cello, viola, and violin. I can play guitar. Don't ask my piano skills. That's not my thing. But guitar and ukulele and mostly string-oriented instruments are kind of my game. But I enjoy doing them and I enjoy just having fun with them. So.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And with the 5-minute break, you'll get a chance to talk more to our students. But I do want to ask Mr. Reynolds, did you want to share what our musical programs are in terms of how many teachers or any one or two items within the final 30 seconds before we prepare to hear our final proclamation?
That's great. I will say that fine arts wise, we have 87 teachers in the district across all of our buildings. That includes theater, visual arts, and music as well. Our high school bands are award winning at all 3 high schools, and our middle school directors put out great products as well. You'll get to peruse some of the art from grade school all the way through high school. In our theater, as Mr. Campbell pointed out, we've had a very successful fall and spring so far this year with our theater departments.
We thank you, Mr. Reynolds and team. We thank you, Mr. Reynolds and team. And as we prepare to transition for our students, Dr. Gray will be delivering on Friday. Just a thank you for being here. Normally, the proclamation is the proclamation. We just deliver that to the school. But we don't normally have students here playing, at least we haven't for 2 years. And so we're so excited to have that. He'll be delivering that as just a thank you to the two of you all, so you have that momentum to keep. Do you have a parent here that we want to just acknowledge? Would you like to share who your parent is? That way we can thank you, Mom, for being here tonight as well.
Our mom is here. Her name is Laura Klug, and she's the music teacher at Williams Science and Fine Arts Magnet.
So a staff member and a mom and a volunteer and many other things. We thank you for all that you do for us and with us. All right, our students can have a seat for just a moment, and we are closing out on our resolutions. We do have one final proclamation. Two amazing social workers, both who have been here practically 3 decades. Mr. Willer and Mrs. Mills, both will be coming up. They're going to read the proclamation. Now, Miss Mills will be presenting on the topic Miss Stewart Campbell previously inquired about, which was mental health. Miss Corey Hare is also online virtually, and she'll talk about JAG. So we're going to acknowledge Corey Hare with her above and beyond at that time. We'll ask any questions about social work at that time so that the highlights will conclude with them just reading the proclamation. Come on up.
Hello. It's my honor to be here as a representative of all of my amazing colleagues in 501. Proclamation of Topeka Unified School District number 501 National School Social Work Month, March 2022. Whereas school social workers in Topeka Public Schools serve as vital members of the educational team, playing a central role in creating a positive environment in our schools, and whereas school social workers are especially skilled in identifying and providing services to students who face serious challenges to school success, including poverty, disability, discrimination, abuse, addiction, bullying, loss of a loved one, and other barriers to learning. And whereas school districts and local educational agencies should continue to work with school social workers to address students' environmental, social, emotional, physical, and mental health needs so that students may achieve academic success. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Unified School District number 501, Topeka, Kansas, does proclaim March 2022 as National School Social Work Month.
Do you want to briefly share how many social workers we have? We're doing the PowerPoint later in the meeting.
Okay, absolutely.
Share how many social workers we have?
Oh my gosh, we have 136.
You want to share
Okay.
with them how many social workers?
All right, we have, hi.
She's
I'm
nervous.
Susan Mills, and I'm been a social worker in the district. I've been a social worker for a long time, about 42 years. But our SPED social workers in the district, we have 28, and we have social workers that serve general education as well as general programs. We have 136 total mental health staff.
136 social workers. You're going to hear from Ms. Mills a little bit later, and you'll get a chance to ask her questions from that PowerPoint that you were looking at. And at this time, we're going to recess for 5 minutes. Mr. Mills?
We recess to take some photos and to check out the art, right? Yeah, all right.
All right, we're going to ask our, since you're sitting on the front, our rushers come right on up, and our coaches and Ms. Morrissey.
And she'll be on the screen, but I figured call her, she's not here.
I'll still put, I still have it on the screen. Dr. Anderson, there's some equipment in the back that I can tune in to make this better. That needs to be a lot stronger. That one should be, I should have to turn that one down.
It seems like, well, maybe because nobody was in here, it seemed like we were able to hear earlier.
Yeah.
It may just been because of us. So I'll take mine back. Or
Yep. I don't know which number that
we
is.
won't need anybody. We won't need, nobody else is coming up to me.
I don't think so.
Oh, the auditors.
Oh, the auditors and Miss
Miss Mills.
yeah. I've got a couple here that I can train in.
Here this evening. Thank you. Thank you. Time, we're going to turn it back over to our board president. That does conclude our highlights for this evening.
Well, it is always fun to be able to meet students, especially these particular students who have either whether it's in arts and have done great things, or our girls who have done amazing things in wrestling. So great to be able to connect with them and congratulate them and give them the recognition that they deserve. Moving on our agenda, next item is public communications. Ms. Lister, do we have any public communications for today?
Mr. President, we do not.
Okay, all right. Moving on to 7, which is consent. Consent adoption of our consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign the special project and purchasing contracts for and on behalf of our board.
There has been a motion made. Mrs. Smith, has a second here. We have a second already. Ms. Lister is the vote.
Vote is open. And all votes are in and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 19 superintendent's report. Dr. Anderson.
Sir, normally we give a superintendent's update about COVID, but we have 0% positivity for students or staff, so there is no COVID report or update. So that is exciting news. However, we are at a board meeting, so we'll be meeting without a report about something. So April is the professional development time, and with that professional development time, we are going to click on the link for professional development. We're having a ball.
Yeah, just hold it down. There you go.
And there we go. That was just to make Now, our board will be happy to know we have a vendor that's taking over videoing at the next board meeting. We're so excited about that. And that vendor will also be videoing and closing up. So those that are watching, we just thank our one-man DJ show here who's doing microphones and PowerPoints and all of that. And then we'll be having some added support. This is on the web page. On the web page, you can click and see the professional learning web page. Ms. Wallace is just going to remind us where this is from the front web page. In the interest of time,
Just use this one.
I think Mr. Gowan did that just because he wants that vendor. And he has made his point. We understand, Mr. Gowan. All right. So Ms. Wallace will remind us where this is on the webpage. But for the interest of time, we have over 75 sessions. It's like a little mini conference in Topeka Public Schools. There's nothing like it anywhere in the state, I don't believe, unless you're at a conference. And so teachers can pick from a variety of workshops. If you're a board member and you want to know what kinds of training we provide, special ed teachers, paraprofessionals, you can click on this particular link and see what's happening on April 25th. You also will see that there's a combination of webinars and video items, but a lot of in-person sessions. One session I'm particularly excited about, I'm only excited because a board member asked me about it yesterday, Mr. Tatum. He wanted to know, how does a person become a teacher if they're a para? Well, we actually have a session called From Paras to Teachers, and what the various grants and programs are that you can do to become a teacher. That's at 9 o'clock on that day. But there are many other sessions, so I won't go into depth, but this is for the board members to know that's out there. Ms. Wallace, can you remind us where this is from the front web page?
Yes, if you're on the front web page and you go to directory or departments and go to the teaching and learning web page, it's on the teaching and learning quick links.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. So that is our very brief superintendent's update. The professional development session is coming. We do have 2 nominees, and we just want those that are listening to know this. For Teacher of the Year, those nominees will be acknowledged, and we'll learn who the finalists are for the state of Kansas. So on Sunday, please look at our website and look at our social media, because that show is on Sunday in the afternoon from KSDE, and the state Teacher of the Year finalists will be announced at that time. So again, we have 2 nominees, and we're excited to see what happens after Sunday. With that, as we continue to move forward through our agenda under Superintendent's Report, this evening will be talking about well-being. Mrs. Stewart Campbell, who, by the way, at your table, you do have the National School Board calendar, not calendar, but the magazine, because the Magna Award is next month. It has Miss Stewart Campbell's child on the front of the magazine. So there's a laminated copy sitting at my desk here. So I'll be bringing you that laminated copy, but you each have a copy of the National School Board Association magazine that goes to every school district in the nation. We happen to be on the front page because, of course, we're #1. So we are the grand prize winner this year for dual language programs. We're so excited about that. Miss Dr. Mejia, Pilar Mejia, and Dr. Kip will both be at the conference, as will Miss Stewart Campbell, who's quoted in the article. Now, I do want to mention to you, you're going to wonder why we put all these stickies on your magazine. And I believe we have some highlighted stickies. Well, I asked our staff to do that, not because we read your magazines before you, but because we sent dozens and dozens of pictures, probably more than most. And because we've done that and they were so excited about our program, we actually, every place where there's a sticky, those are our students on that page. So we just want you to see that it's the front page, the table of contents where you see a photo of 2 children. Those are children from Scott. And then any other page that's marked for you, those are our students on that page. So we really are highlighted throughout Topeka Public Schools, and we're just excited about that. As we proceed and begin talking about mental health and well-being, we're going to bring that PowerPoint up. Ms. Mills will be coming to the microphone, and we're going to just read through the PowerPoint, and at the very end, we'll answer questions. Mrs. Corey Hare is on the screen with us, and we'll be turning it over to her to just read the page on just JAG. So very quickly, as we just go through, I'll start off with that first or second slide, and we're just going to kind of tag team in this way. As we go to the very next slide, I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Mills to talk about the staff numbers. She's just going to read through that, and then as we go back and forth through the slides at the very end, again, we'll just answer questions. Before she begins, I want you to know that Corey Hare, who is on the screen, that's getting the Above and Beyond Award, is the teacher who did a home visit. And because of her home visit, there were children at home that day for truancy. And she encouraged them to return to school the next day. They did return to school the next day. That afternoon, while she was back at school, and I believe, is that Ms. Hare on with us? We'll have to make sure that we plug her in if she's not already on the screen. Because she did that home visit the next day around 12 o'clock, she saw on the news that their home was on fire. She remembered their home because she was there the day before because the children were truant. Now, that being said, had Ms. Hare not gone to their home, it's quite possible that those children would have been at their home when that fire was occurring during the school day. So some teachers, throughout the day, and she has children at home, in the evening, doing home visits does pay. Doing home visits shows that literally the decision she made saved many lives. So she actually was the one that called the parent to tell the parent that her house was on fire because she saw it being live streamed as the fire was being put out. Parent rushes home, sees the home is on fire. Mrs. Hare continued to assist the family with getting housing that evening, taking food and clothes and all kinds of things that she's done for this family. So that is why Mrs. Hare is our Above and Beyond winner. We want to start with that. Can you spotlight Ms. Hare for us?
I'm looking for her.
He is looking for her, and I just said all of that. Well, with that, at the very end, we're going to come.
She is spotlighted. It's because we're showing the presentation.
Oh, well, we'll pull that presentation down for a moment. There you are, Ms. Hare.
Hi, good evening.
Hello, and she's going to be talking about JAG. But with that, Ms. Hare, did I capture that story properly?
Yep, pretty close. We've had a couple students come through our program that are part of that family, so I was very familiar with the house, and we were able to get a hold of mom and have the students at school that day. So we were just really thankful for that.
So Ms. Hare is our coordinator and teacher and does all kinds of things, but her job is not officially social worker or counselor, but as a coordinator or a teacher in Topeka Public Schools, you do all things that are within your reach. We're going to pull up the certificate for Ms. Hare. And Ms. Hare, I just want to congratulate you. This certificate, which has already been delivered to Ms. Hare, it was like the next day after the event, we actually delivered certificate, but the certificate that we're showing on the screen just recognizes Ms. Corey Hare for her above and beyond efforts for Topeka Public Schools and really demonstrating excellence in service to others. We'll pull that on off the screen, and Ms. Hare, once again, as we start this PowerPoint, we just thank you. You are an amazing woman, and we are fortunate to have you in Topeka Public Schools.
Thank you.
All right, we'll turn it over to Ms. Mills, who will start with the first slide. I'll read the second one, and we'll be going back and forth. Ms. Mills.
All right. Again, I want to say hello and what an honor it is to be here with you folks. It's really an honor to talk about social work and mental health.
Oh, that's right. You did tell me that I always say you talk soft. She said 2 times you said I talk soft. So I'm going to talk soft, have a loud microphone. So we're going to turn it up. And if we can't hear you as well, I'm going to slide another microphone in front of you. Okay.
I stated a minute ago, we have 136 total staff members. 28 of these staff members are special ed social workers. We have 14 social work interns, and they're not paid, but they're provided us from the universities. We have 9 general education social workers, 51 counselors. We have 1 homeless coordinator, and that's a new position this year, and it's an amazing initiative of Dr. Anderson and the Topeka Public School Board. This homeless coordinator helps so many families in our school community. We have 16 school psychologists and 2 psychologists that are contracted with us. We have 2 behavior interventionists, 8 mental health liaisons, 4 mental health mentors, and 1 mental health interventionist. In our mental health intervention program, I wanted to visit just a minute more with you about that. It is a grant from KSDE, and the legislative dollars are there to support mental health services in the schools. In partnership with Family Service and Guidance, we have 8 liaisons that are Topeka Public School employees. They're actually in 16 buildings and sometimes go out and make other visits. So they're in at least 2 buildings. We partner with Family Service and Guidance with therapists and case managers. Insurance is not required. And as I had mentioned a minute ago, there are 18 schools that have received some of the services this year. Additionally, the Topeka Public Schools liaisons, who are our employees, have provided 780 direct service minutes to students and an additional 580 indirect services to families. Every year we do a year-end report, and this is our 4th year. And I just demonstrated the data just a bit for you to know that in 2020-21, the data reflected a total of 284 students received services. 97% showed improved behavior, 75% showed academic performance and engagement, and 64% of the students showed improved attendance. We do have other mental health services that include the 14 social workers I mentioned. They're coming from the University of Kansas, Washburn University, and this year we have a student that is a graduate of ours, actually from Hope Street, that is connected virtually with Boston College, and I think that is so neat. I'm so proud of her. She's an adult and she has children of her own in our school system. We partner with the Youth Suicide Coalition resources, and this provides services and 7 Cups app, an opportunity to connect live with a therapist 24/7. Our partnerships are not limited to Family Service and Guidance. We also partner with Impact Avenues in Stormontville, and we utilize in Topeka Public Schools the neurosequential model in education, which is a way to respond to trauma with sensitive practices. Finally, I wanted to share that we work with the University of Kansas in developing the comprehensive tiered intervention, which referred to as CI3T, and I'm sure you've all heard of that.
Ms. Hare will talk a little bit about Jaguar Academy, then we'll turn it over to the board for questions that you may have. Ms. Hare?
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. So Jaguar Academy is our kindergarten through 6th grade special day school program, similar to Capital City, that's 7th through 12th grade. We do try to maintain a 2-to-1 ratio for scholars, and we service students in special education who have significant behavioral and social emotional needs. And we are housed at Jardine Elementary School on the Jardine campus. So we just really work with our students to establish, helpful, meaningful relationships, address their mental health concerns, as well as academics, and encourage them and practice ways to build those healthy relationships with peers, with adults, and practice self-regulation and make sure that their mental health needs are being met and are, contributing members to our school and our community. We're a little bit different because we do have some additional on-site mental health supports. We do have a full-time social worker just for our program. We also do have one of those mental health liaisons that Ms. Mills spoke about. She is shared with the entire campus, but 0.5 of her time is spent with us. We also have a therapist that's shared and a shared school psychologist. So we really use that small group setting to provide that social emotional instruction and academic support and get these scholars back to their home schools with their gen ed peers.
Ms. Hare, at this time, we're going to turn it over to our board to ask questions about mental health, or I think specifically Jaguar Academy was requested, but since we're celebrating social workers, we wanted to share a little bit about social work and mental health as well. We'll turn it over to Mr. Munoz.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Questions? Well, let's go first with Ms. Schmidt and then Dr. Bonebrake afterwards.
So I am curious as to if you guys have seen an increase in mental health needs over the course of the pandemic through students and families, staff, and then what have you done to adjust for that?
That's a very good question. I don't know that there's a total increase from the data, but it's different. Some of the behaviors are a little bit more aggressive, but the suicide threat assessments are down. So I think the schools are providing a lot of what the children need. When I have the opportunity to go in all the schools, and the loving reception of the teachers on a daily basis from first thing in the morning throughout the day is really amazing.
That is so good to hear. Thank you.
Dr. Bonebrake.
I'm wondering if 501 doesn't provide more of these social services than maybe any other school district. I'm concerned. I would think that school violence is related to emotional problems. And it seems we have a lot of social workers, a lot of people addressing these issues. Is 501 superior to others?
Yes, we are. And the data does prove that. It was one of the first things about 6 years ago. We doubled the number of counselors. Remember, Dr. Grimes mentioned we have 56 or so, or over 56 counselors. You just heard we have over 120 social workers. And then that was outside of some of the other programs that were also mentioned. We have not had a suicide in, I believe it's 5 consecutive years.
That's correct.
And one of the things that we did, we, thought about, there's eye exams and ear exams. Why don't we do mental health exams? And initially people thought, how can you do that? So I literally just put 3 questions on the enrollment form. Sounds kind of crazy. And from those 3 questions taken from the ACEs survey, and I didn't take a survey to ask people what the questions, I just picked 3 questions and put them there. Because there are 3 things with trauma, such as loss of a loved one. Whoever that loved one is often a trigger. And so we put those 3 questions on the survey. And since then, the Mental Health Committee and our social workers and counselors have continued to look at that data. We haven't really changed the questions. We may have refined the way we ask them. But since then, we have not had a suicide since then. And we did the questions in part because of that. You want to mention the Suicide Youth Commission? That's another thing that started that we are really proud of, that we think is one of the reasons why we, our district, despite suicide being the 3rd leading cause of death in children, we have not had one in a number of years. I'll turn it over to you to talk about the Youth Commission.
Yes, that Youth Commission is amazing. I knew in my role this year, and I knew it was out there, but I've experienced it firsthand. They meet with family service and guidance and teachers from Topeka Public Schools, and students join from all the area high schools. And it's just amazing to watch the commitment and the care they have for one another and their thoughtfulness about how we get the word out. And part of the suggestions have been things like at a football game. And I think there was one at Topeka West. They had shirts that they had made and printed that they matter and passed it out to the students. And there's a community support across the district.
And can you mention what 7 Cups are? We put 7 Cups. You might not know. Again, this is a student-led initiative, the Student Suicide Coalition. These are young people having these ideas. So can you share what 7 Cups are?
Yes, the 7 Cups is an opportunity for students are connected to apps and devices. And this forum was developed by a psychologist. There's been over 51 million hits on this across the country. Students
immediately can have if they are on it, they have a live connection with a therapist 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The types of items that they can bring to them are anything that's concerning them, but often they talk about depressing feelings or feelings about bullies or what they could do to have less anxiety. There's also games on it for self-improvement, self-skill building. So it's really quite an amazing tool.
Other questions? Mr. Tatum.
Thank you, Mr. President. A quick question. I am looking at one of the previous slides that talks about mental health staffing with 136 total staff members. And I know what a social worker is, and I know what a school psychologist is, and even a homeless coordinator. But some of these other positions, I know they're pretty important, but I just don't have a sense of what separates one from the other. For example, the behavior interventionists, how is their work different from the mental health liaisons or the mental health interventionist? And I was hoping maybe you could just kind of enlighten us a little bit on those.
Well, I will share what I know, and then maybe Mrs. Wallace or Dr. Anderson might contribute more information. I believe some of these folks are ESSER funded, and they're classified in most cases. I think the behavior interventionist is actually a certified teacher, and sometimes they're placed where schools have certain needs. Sometimes they're mostly concerned about behavior. Sometimes they may be more concerned about relationships or more concerned about engagement. So they are different by educational status. Often they're different as how they're classified, rather they're certified versus the classified employee. They also are often able to connect with kids in a different sort of way than less clinical.
I was going to turn over to Ms. Wallace on the behavior interventions. Ms. Wallace, can you share where the two are located? And then if you want to speak to the mental health liaisons, unless that's an area that's ESSER funded, anything that's ESSER funded, Ms. Wallace will talk about, because there are specific things they do that are within that description. Anything that's not ESSER funded, that's a mental health liaison, if that would be something that you might want to speak to. Ms. Wallace, can you share where the behavior interventionists are and just share briefly what they do?
So yes, behavior interventionists are title funded positions. And so you could find a behavior interventionist from year to year. It may change what a school provides based on need. But at a Title I school, it is federal dollars that are put in place to assist students that are on free and reduced rates. All of our schools are school-wide projects. For example, we have a behavior interventionist this year at Ross, and they are there to help intervene with behaviors, provide support to the teachers, to coach, but also to pull those students out and work with them on redirecting behaviors, and just supporting that instruction in the classroom going on while they address behavior.
The mental health liaisons are funded through the KSDE. It's a a state grant, and that money comes to two sources. One comes to the Topeka Public Schools to pay for the liaisons, and then money also goes into the local mental health center, which is community family services and guidance, of course, in this community. And the liaisons are different in that their intent is to connect students that need mental health services, and their behaviors or their disengagement, something's triggered in the minds of the parent and the teachers that these students are in need of mental health, and that's their focus.
I have a couple of questions. I wonder, these staff members, 136 total, how do they break down in terms of high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools. Do you have any sense of that?
Yes, the elementary schools all have at least half-time dedicated special ed social worker. Many of them have a full-time. There are schools that have less need that may share one. The general ed social workers tend to be mostly in the high schools, which is, and I believe they're in all 4 of the high schools, and the preschool. There's 2 social workers there that serve the 3 campuses. Other breakdowns for the mental health interventionist or the liaisons based on need. And there are formulas for the amount of students, free and reduced lunch, the amount of student issues and with student needs index. And so we look at that and how many special ed population behavior.
Thank you. And one of the reasons I ask is that we've had some issues in our middle schools, and I wonder if mental health, staff has sort of had any conversations about maybe some pivots or adjustments to sort of, get at some of those potential behaviors we're seeing in our middle schools.
Okay. I feel like that's a bit out of my scope. Some of that I think is more counseling.
And it is a counseling piece. And so we do have, again, double the counselors and a full mental health team at the middle schools. As Mrs. Mills shared, we're seeing a different kind of mental health opportunity for our middle and high school students than what we've seen in the past. And those that have been isolated that are coming back to middle and high school. We're seeing young people more, as she mentioned, more aggressive than they have been in the past and at the elementary, but it looks very different at the middle school. Therefore, we've reinstituted some of our mental health rooms. So we have little spaces where students can go and diffuse and just regulate and have some self-regulation. French, they actually have it for staff and students. And they had that pre-pandemic and they've reinstituted that. And then all of the middle schools really have some level of space for that as well. But they all have, again, double the number of counselors that you would normally see in many places. They all have social workers, animal therapy at the secondary level as well. So the pupil teacher ratio from the National School Counseling Association is normally 201, 200 students to every 1 counselor. That's normally what you would see. Topeka Public Schools is below 200 to 1 for counselors. And then on top of our counselors, we have our social workers. So the staffing piece is not necessarily the issue at the middle or high school. We are staffed beyond what most are. But the opportunities in terms of the kinds of behaviors displayed by an adolescent student may be a little bit more severe, and they may be more willing to have a fight or something like that, or to demonstrate their aggression in a different way. So we just have been a little bit more creative and intentional about how we address those kinds of behaviors. And we're using more of our virtual school for students who really need another space outside of the traditional school this year for those that need that. Does that answer the question overall, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bowley.
I understand that Kansas Department of Education is funding some extra help in our school districts across Kansas. How long was that funding going to last, and how many people is it funding?
For Topeka Public Schools, there are 8 liaisons, and it's a year to year. So we reapply every year, and we were advised in March that out of committees, they were favorable. But I know conversations occur. So we usually know by June. Our end-year report is due June 30th, but we usually know whether this is going to be funded again or much earlier. And like I said, I've already been advised by Kansas State Department of Ed that it's very favorable.
So is this not anything new? This isn't response to the coronavirus pandemic that we just had, this funding, or has this funding always been in place?
No, this is a 4-year. It started, this is our 4th year. But I did want to add to what Dr. Anderson was reflecting. Our students were gone. And I think it's hit our very young and those middle schools. They've received a lot of loss. They haven't been supervised. And I think that's why it's real important. Not only do we add structure, but we add the mental health piece as well, because I think some of these kids are confused. They may have some depression and anger, as well as the social media challenges that trigger this kind of behavior.
And family loss as well for
Right.
many of our students in our district.
Many deaths and many losses of jobs and the way of life.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Ms. Stewart Campbell.
Thank you, Ms. Mills, for this presentation and enlightening us about all the very important work and delineating for us who's who and who does what. So I really appreciate it.
Well, it's been an honor.
And Ms. Hare, I have a question about the Jaguar Academy. So, and also thank you so much for everything you're doing. It's extremely important work, as we all know. Okay, question number one is, must a student have an IEP in order to attend the Jaguar Academy?
Yes, we are a special education only program.
Okay. And
now, can we add to that, Ms. Hare, prior to now, when we first opened up Jardine, were we not at that time taking elementary gen ed students? But since the pandemic, in a portion of the building, we kind of created an alternative program. But since then, we've expanded in a way where schools are keeping their own students at their school. Am I correct, Ms. Hare, in that regard?
Yes, pre-pandemic, we did have a program for some general education population. But like Dr. Anderson just said, we have expanded the programming in all of our elementary schools to kind of build capacity there for them to be able to address and maintain those students in their home schools.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, thank you. Okay, I actually have two follow-up questions. So the first one is, how long might a student be at the Jaguar Academy? Is it like, a minimum a quarter, or, if you see significant progress, they go back to their home school, or how does that work?
It's very case by case. Since our program started 5 years ago in 2017, we have transitioned out about, I think, almost 20 students at this point. I'm not sure how many we've transitioned in, but we've had students stay with us and be with us for the entirety of our programming and continue on into Capital City Schools. We've had students who have been with us for as little as 3 to 6 months. So it's just very individual and case by case. Our goal is always to get them, in and back, get the skills they need and back to their home schools as quickly as possible. For some, it takes a little longer than others.
Okay, thank you. And last question, what happens to a student if all the supports and everything you're doing at Jaguar Academy just aren't meeting, that student's needs, and they need something beyond? Is there what's the next stop after Jaguar Academy?
That's a really good question. For most of our students, we also contract with Project Plus. That's a program at Forbes Field. That is a resource that we've utilized for some students if they haven't been successful on our campus. That doesn't happen very often. Typically, for students, if they're struggling still here, we just meet constantly and pull in resources from all angles. And having that mental health liaison and that program paired with our program has been a game changer for us. And we've been able to partner with mental health agencies and services throughout the community. Because oftentimes, if that's the case, there are more significant underlying factors. And sometimes those students do end up in a hospitalization setting and then return to us, or are able to return to even a regular school after they get released from that setting, but it doesn't happen often. And we do utilize that Project Plus setting at times.
Yes, okay, thank you. I'm familiar with Project Plus because my office in my migrant position used to be at Forbes Field. So I interacted some with the Project Plus staff.
We're very lucky to have those partnerships. So.
Yeah, I'd like run into them at the copy. Do you know how many TPS students we have now at Project Plus?
Yes.
Yeah, we do. Go ahead.
I love how we tag team. Do you actually know the number? I can tell you how many seats we fill. We fill all our seats, and
I believe it's 12.
You're going to say about what, 14?
12, I believe.
We try to buy between 12 and 14 seats. Project Plus for everyone else, it was a new piece for us in Topeka Public Schools. We learned that was the question. What happens when students are in a state that we need something more? And upon investigating, I learned that there was a Project Plus, been open for 20 years. We just, Topeka Public Schools, had not been using it. But you also have to be part of this consortium in order to use it. So you have to wait till there's a spot open. A spot opened, we became part of the consortium about 4 or maybe 5 years ago. And since then, we've just purchased the maximum number of seats. Everybody gets one set number. And is that correct? Is it 12 or is it 15 at this time?
It's 12.
So, and with all 12, we will always use all 12 of those seats for the number of schools we have. May not necessarily be JAG students, but there will be students. And then of course we have CRE. We also have Florence Critton. We have some other partnerships beyond the scope of what these ladies are involved with.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Okay. We appreciate all the work that social workers do, especially in this time and age. And we know that students were affected in many ways. And so your work is so important. So thank you again.
Thank you. As we conclude that report, we do want to mention, you started with the fact that we're number one. And so we're going to go back to that number one. Ms. Wallace, do you want to share the most recent award that we've received in social emotional health?
Yes, so the state has CAN Star Awards. Last year we applied and we received a bronze award. So just so you know, there are about 250 plus districts in Kansas. There are 5 schools that received the silver. No schools received the gold. And there were 13 other schools along with us that won the bronze award.
So that is a wonderful space to conclude on, and we are thankful for our social workers. We're going to turn it over now to our All right. So with that, thank you, Mr. Gowan. As we conclude that piece, we do want to mention, I'm going to turn it over to our auditors, and Mr. Minke is going to come up and introduce him. As he's coming up, it takes a lot of math in order to do finance. So the young man that's sitting next to Mr. Minke, he's not Mr. Minke's son, although they kind of look alike. He actually is a college student, and he's a freshman. Mr. Roberts, is that your last name? All right, Mr. Roberts wants to be a math teacher. So he thought it would be exciting tonight to come and observe. And so, Mr. Roberts, this presentation may be lengthy. If you need to leave and your class requirement has been completed, I've already signed your paperwork. And so feel free to do that at some point. And we're going to turn it over now to Mr. Minke. Mr. Roberts has our card and he knows that he can have an interview if he decides to apply. And as Mr. Minke comes on up to the microphone to take over, come on up, Mr. Minke. This is just your entrance piece. As Mr. Minke comes up, we do want to mention, this was exciting. After Mrs. Campbell talked about our future PE teacher, I said to her, well, you know, we do interviews and you're a junior. And she says, oh, I know, I already have my contract for 5 years from now, which I said, well, great, we're really getting good at this. And she knew you from speaking to her class, but she already interviewed with Dr. New. Of course, every student that graduates that wants to be a teacher, I have HR hire interview. And if they're students that we know we want to hire, will they get their contract 4 years early? So in this case, the student has it 5 years early. I told our wrestler when she left that I'd be sure to mention that. We're proud of, I think you said Mon is her nickname. We'll turn it over to Mr. Minky and his riveting presentation.
Yeah, well, good evening. We're here to share the results of the fiscal year 2021 audit. In front of you, you have a board report, which Karen Lynn from BT & Co., who's to my right, a senior partner at BT & Co., will go over with you. And below that is the full audit. That full audit will be on the website, accessible on our website. It's accessible on the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, EMA, ARMAS. It's on about 6 or 7 different sites. So you can take that great big book home if you'd like. I'll sign it for you or whatever you'd like, or you could leave it right there, which is probably what you will choose to do. But I would take that board report because that is specifically written for you. And Ms. Lynn with BT & Co. will walk us through that. So Karen.
Good evening. I appreciate a few moments of your meeting this evening to go through the results of the audit. As Mr. Minky indicated, I'm going to focus on the smaller of the reports because that report has the conclusions from the audit process and the items that are most important for you to hear about from me related to the audit. Several weeks ago, I think just at the beginning of March, I met with the Finance and Budget Committee to go through in more detail the items from the audit. So we were able to go through questions and review things with them. So tonight I am just going to report the same information and answer any questions that you might have. So following through in the report to the Board of Education. If you're following in that report, I'm going to start just beyond the table of contents. First, our responsibility is to perform the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. Those standards require that we plan and perform the audit with the objective of forming an opinion about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement. And we were able to make that statement and form an opinion that in our opinion, the financial statements are free of material misstatement. And that is an unmodified opinion, which is the highest form of opinion that can be given to a set of financials. We also perform the audit in accordance with government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States, the provisions of the Single Audit Act, Uniform Guidance, and OMB's compliance supplement. All of those standards are required because of the a little bit over $27.5 million worth of federal expenditures that the district spent during the year. Those standards require us to perform internal control testing and compliance testing on certain of those major expenditures, of those major programs. We did test 3 of the major programs, and those were the Education Stabilization Program, the Child Nutrition Cluster, and the Coronavirus Relief Program. The results of that testing was no findings and no internal control compliance issues that we needed to report. So again, good findings related to that test work. The last item that we perform our audit in accordance with is the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. That is the state of Kansas requirement that we perform certain compliance test work, mostly related to statutory items. And again, nothing that we needed to report related to any compliance issues within that test work. All of our test work that we perform for the financial statement amounts and disclosures, we do that test work related to all of the expenditures and the revenue cycles, and we review internal controls. In addition to that, we also look at accounting policies to make sure that they're appropriately handled, that they're consistent, and that there's nothing unusual for us to report. If we have any, if we find any unusual transactions, again, we will take a look at those to make sure there's nothing unusual or inconsistently handled. Nothing, again, in those that we need to report to you. There was one new Government Accounting Standards Board that was applied this year, number 84, related to fiduciary activities. This GASB 84 required the activity fund, which used to be handled as fiduciary activities, to be replaced in the audit report to governmental activities. So in essence, they moved from not being recorded within the district's accounting numbers. They used to not be in the accounting numbers to be moved to the front of the financials to now being included in the district's numbers. So this was a new accounting standard that was required to be changed. And so the district did comply with that. There are significant accounting estimates in these financial statements. And so we do review those accounting estimates as a part of our audit process. On page 4 of this document, we do have a table that lists those out. The other post-employment benefits, self-insurance reserves, the net pension liability, and the investments and their valuation at fair value are all considered to be significant estimates. We review the district's policy and their estimation process so that we can be comfortable that what is recorded in the financial statements is reasonable, and we were able to come to that conclusion. We did have some adjusting entries that were identified as a part of the audit process, and these are listed in the back of this book. Those adjusting entries are here for your information, and they are normal adjusting entries that are made to move the district's financial statements from the cash basis that the district uses to the modified accrual basis and to the full accrual basis, which are the two sets of financial statements that are included in the large financial statement book, which is the other book that you have in front of you. Other things that we would bring to your attention is if we had any issues or problems in the audit process, any disagreements about accounting matters, disagreements about audit issues, anything like that would be a red flag of a more serious issue that we would bring to your attention much earlier than tonight. And we would bring it to your attention when it came to our attention. So not having come to you with that earlier than tonight is a good sign that we didn't have any issues or problems during the audit process. And I would say to you that we had great cooperation and great efficiency. Everything with Mr. Menke and his team was provided to us as we requested it and timely, and we were able to work our way through the audit process without any issues. And to let you know that the results that you're hearing from me tonight about the audit don't just happen during the time frame that we are here working on the audit. It's because of year-round work that Mr. Menke and his team do year-round. It takes a lot of work for these results to happen. As you can see in the financial report, there is a lot of information that gets processed through the accounting department. And it does take a lot of work to get that done and to get good results like we have here. The last item that I want to bring to your attention is the letter that's just beyond the table of estimates. This letter is called Management's Representation Letter. It's required by our audit standards to have things that we discussed during the audit process that are represented to us during the audit process about financial accounting matters to be put in writing to us as the final step of the audit process. As you can see, this is a fairly lengthy letter, so there's a lot of information in there, but the information that is in that letter supports the financial statements, gives information about the financial statements, and can help readers of the financial statements to have that much more information to help them digest what is in the financial statements. So we do encourage you to read through the letter and to help you get that much more information to help with your fiduciary responsibilities towards financial accounting matters. If you do have questions after reading through that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So those are the conclusions from the audit process. I might just point out in the big financial report, just one item, and that is starting on page 4 and going through page 12 is really a little document within the big financial statement called Management's Discussion and Analysis. These pages is really an analysis just in writing that helps summarize the rest of the financial statement, just in written form, that can help really summarize and pull a lot of the things that happened in the financial statements just into narrative form for readers who aren't used to reading financial statements to be able to get that summary without having to work their way through the large financial statements to be able to get that summary and to get that snapshot of the financials. So I do encourage you to read that, those short number of pages to help get that information. Even if you do want to read through the rest of the financials, I think that's a good place to start to help you get that starting point for what's in the rest of the financial statements. So with that, I would answer any questions that anyone might have.
Any questions? Before we go to questions, I do want to first off thank you for all of your work. I know it's 5 months worth roughly of work. And also in addition, recognize our finance department and everyone who's involved with that. If you all would say, and because it is an incredible amount of work to have everything. It is a number of individuals, yourselves obviously, but a number of individuals who for how many years now have we had this level of?
I think we went back and looked 5 years. Yes, have no findings.
It is no small task. So thank you to you all. Do we have any questions of Ms. Bully?
So this is a little bit above my pay grade, which is no pay. I just notice a lot of negative numbers. And so on the last few pages, it talks about credits and debits. And it's just, I see the minus sign there. And so is that because of our state payments that come in that we have negative and then that's covered?
So just to make sure I'm clear of where you are, what you're looking at, are you looking at?
I'm looking at the adjusted journal entries.
Adjusting journal entries.
Year end June 30th.
Okay, so every adjusting journal entry has to balance. So it's going to have a positive and a negative that are equal, that are the same number. So the reason why you see negatives is because every adjusting journal entry is going to have a negative number that's equal to the positive number. That's how.
It's not like my bank account necessarily. It's not the same.
It's not a bad thing. If the entries don't balance, then we got problems.
That's great. Because usually as a personal person, a negative is a concern. Right. So that's why I was
in this case, it's a good thing.
Thank you.
I do have a question for those of us who are new and also those who could use reminders. What are some things that we should be paid attention to that will make us good stewards of as board members?
Things that board members should be not just looking at, but asking questions about are what are the internal controls that are in existence, so that you should be making sure that the internal controls are in existence and are functioning. So you should be asking questions to make sure that you're getting answers to those questions. On a bigger picture type questions, asking questions about risk, things that are at high risk for the district, things like what we're hearing in the news about cybersecurity. So just making sure that you're asking questions about things like that that make the district at risk. Those are really it's those high level things that are the types of things that I think the board should be asking questions about.
And just as a sort of FYI, within the Finance Council, we talked about making sure we have an annual review of our internal controls. That we make sure we're all aware, we're all understand what are the checks and balances that we have in place and make sure we're familiar with that. But I think your answer also speaks to perhaps some of the individuals, some of us who are on the technology committee, and the fact that the cyber issues are increasingly something that we all as school districts have to be aware of. And so for those of you who are on technology, I think there's some implications for you all and the work that you're doing there to make sure that we are sort of know what are the threats and are on top of what we're doing to sort of mitigate that. So. Any other questions? Yes, Dr. Bonebrake.
Confused after our finance meeting a couple of weeks ago about the pension liability for Capers. It's tens of millions of dollars. Does the state make that up, or how? Because like being retired myself, I wonder about Medicare being solvent here in another 10 to 15 years.
That liability came again out of another GASB, another Governmental Accounting Standards Board statement, probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago already, that basically stated that every governmental entity needed to have its share of any statewide pensions underfunding on their financial statement, even though it was not going to be funded by those governmental entities. So Capers, along with every other state that has a pension that's shared amongst all of their entities, does an allocation that allocates their underfunded status, or in some cases, there are some states who aren't underfunded, who are, who have a surplus, but they allocate that to all the governmental entities across the state, and then that gets recorded on each governmental entity's financial statements. It is not needed to be funded by the district. It's an unfunded, it's one of those that's considered to be an unfunded liability, but the GASB requires it to be a liability that's recorded. I'm not sure that there's a, I don't know, I shouldn't probably say it out loud, a logical explanation for it, but that's what the governmental standards require us to do.
Somebody will cover it.
Well, I mean, the hope is that, there's some point in time when the underfunding is not, well, is earned back with earnings. Yeah.
I mean, it is reflected if you look in the bigger documents, like our net position, you'll see assets, liabilities, and our net position will be another one of those negative numbers visibly that I hate as well. But it is really reflective of our proportionate share of the Capers pension liability, which is $169 million. If you look at our cash basis budget document, you won't see that anymore. You'll see Code 51, where we record what Capers supports district employees, the employer share comes from Capers. But this is an actuarial number. Milliman, I believe, does the actuarial work for the state. They do it for many states, and it's a report annually that shows the value of that future liability of pension payments for the state of Kansas. And then, as Ms. Lynn suggested, the GASB rules said, everybody needs to reflect in their audited financial statements, their proportionate share of that liability. Say, hey, it's out there. I think it makes no sense to me. But
And if you remember, I said earlier that there's two sets of financials in here, the modified accrual and a full accrual. The full accrual is the set of financials that has that $169 million liability on it, because it is truly a full set of financials that has all assets and all liabilities. The modified accrual is just a couple of pages beyond that on page 16, which is more of a snapshot of 1 year. And it says what is on that financial statement is the assets that we're going to use in 1 year and the liabilities that we need to pay in 1 year. And so that modified accrual is really more for governments because they budget for 1 year and they spend money based on a 1 year budget. So it's still important for governments to have that financial statement that's, this is what we're going to, these are the assets we're going to use, the revenues we're going to receive, all on a 1 year look. And so that's, so when you look at this other financial statement and you see these 169 million and you see these large liabilities, but you still have this other financial statement that is more comfortable to look at based on your 1 year budget and the items that you're used to seeing when you look at your budget process. And that's, again, the way GASB requires these financials to be presented with both of them together. And they have, there is a reconciliation that says when you want to go from this one to that one, you can see exactly what pieces take you between the two.
You use the GASB. Remind us again what GASB stands for?
Governmental Accounting Standards Board.
Yeah, I knew that. I just wanted to.
But ultimately, though, the district is not responsible
Correct.
for that. It's the state.
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay. Oh, no, I just want to reiterate our appreciation for all of your work, making sure that we are where we need to be. And again, to our finance team, thank you for all of your work. We really appreciate it. This doesn't go unnoticed by us.
Thank you. And Mr. Robbins, did you have a comment? Of course, Mr. Robbins oversees operations and finance. You have a final comment, sir, that you'd like to make?
I'd just like to, restate for the full board what I shared at our Budget Finance Committee meeting, that, you really had to been here for a number of years to appreciate where we are now versus where we were. To have 5 consecutive years of absolutely no findings on our audit report is a tremendous accomplishment. And it's one that I certainly want to commend Mr. Minke for, along with the rest of his team, us being able to accomplish that feat and continue it for consecutive years. It shows that I think that the finances within the district are being handled properly. And hopefully with results like you just heard this evening, the board will have confidence in the fact that administration is doing the jobs properly. And we're making sure that things, particularly financially, are taken care of because it's the finances that enables us to accomplish many of the things that you heard at the earlier part of the meeting. That's the gas that enables the automobile to run. Again, I think it's a tremendous accomplishment, and I think all of that gratitude goes out to Mr. Minke and his entire team down there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are we done with your part, Dr. Anderson?
Yes, that does conclude those areas. The next item, we'll just be asking you to take action on those boundaries. We did not get any other comments or concerns regarding that. People seem to be pleased with that second boundary item. And then we just want to make sure you're aware of the next year's board schedule. Those are all the things that we have before you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Okay, so action item number 20, which is taking action regarding the school boundaries. We are needing a vote. Is there any, before we go ahead and take action on any other discussion, any questions regarding that? No? Okay, we can go ahead and take the vote. Ms. Lister. Well, okay, motion first. I'm looking for a motion to approve, to take action on the school boundaries.
So moved.
Second.
Action, a motion by Mr. Tatum and a second by Dr. Bowenbrake. All right, any discussion? Okay. Ms. Lister. Okay, thank you, everybody. Next item is our discussion item, which is the draft of the board meeting schedule for 2022-2023 academic year. You should have a document with the list of all of our board dates, and there are a couple of highlights there. And Ms. Lister, I wonder if you might just sort of go over it for our information and just give us a highlight of the things that we might be aware of.
You may need a microphone so those listening in can hear you.
We start getting calls about meetings and that sort of thing for next year already.
So there is some individuals who are looking to asking about.
Spring break,
Sure.
vacation, school scheduling things, because we try to tell them not to use board nights.
Okay. Any questions from us? Okay, we'll take a look at this again in the near future and make a vote on that to confirm these dates. We are now ready for board comments. And again, as we discussed in prior meetings, board comments, obviously, anything you want to share, but in addition, if you have anything you want to share out from some of your committees, that might be an appropriate time as well. So Dr. Bonebrake.
Has $42 million, and I suggested last time that maybe we have some ideas and suggestions as to what we might do with those COVID relief funds. I, of course, have suggested lengthening the school year, adding instruction days, paying the teachers more, lengthening the school year, same number of school days.
If I may, Dr. Bonebrake,
Yeah.
we will be adding this as a discussion item for a future board meeting. We knew tonight was the
Okay.
audit, and we thought you might fall asleep if we add that after the auditors finish speaking at 8 o'clock. But we will be adding that at a future meeting, and I'll be asking the president
Okay.
what meeting he'd like to add that down.
Okay.
We are required to get feedback from 14 or 15 groups, I believe Ms. Wallace shared. And the board is not one of the groups we're required to get feedback from. And so as Dr. Bonebrake asked, can we give feedback? And I told him, that's a great idea. We should just manage this at one of the public board meetings to see how would you like to see these dollars spent? We can't spend the dollars until we get feedback from those 14 or 15 groups, which we're in the students included, which we're in the process of getting that this year. And then we'll turn in the plan. So we'll add this to a future agenda between now and June.
And what's the period of time we have to use it?
Ms. Wallace, can you speak to that, please?
Yes, all ESSER funds must be expended by, I believe it's September 30th, 2024.
Okay. The legislature is, as you know, I have said, is trying to kill public education by 1,000 little pinpricks. But people generally know what they do, and they frequently know why they do what they do, but they usually don't know that what they do, what that actually does. Am I making sense? So they can decide something, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the outcome is what they were looking for. And I think these vouchers, I think adding more burden to the teachers for the information they have to put on the internet for parents, the parents' rights. Maybe we could pay overtime with the ESSER monies, but that's, like I said before, if I had any hair, I'd pull it out.
Okay, Dr. Schumacher.
It's always great to follow up, Dr. Bonebrake. So I, as the son of an accountant, that I appreciate the audit, but and appreciate all the hard work that goes into it. I don't know that I understand it completely, but overlooking, I do really find that the those pages, management discussion and analysis was incredibly helpful for me to understand all the numbers. So I appreciate the hard work. I also appreciate, the work with mental health as a pediatrician. I've recommended 7 cups about 15 times in the last 2 weeks to my patients, my teenagers, and it's a great program put on and supported through 501 and Family Service. I do think that the arts help a lot with mental health. As a former drummer in Topeka Eyes Band, it was how I found my people, and so I I'm excited by all the support. My two committees, I'm on personnel. Attended my second meeting today, and technology, which we have next week. And I don't know if I have anything specific to report out, but I do appreciate the hard work for the people on those committees that are in this room and might be listening online. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tatum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really hope I'm not stealing anyone's thunder, but I did want to talk about this. As everybody knows, Dr. Anderson got some high accolades recently. The Kansas Woman of the Year. And I want to say publicly that I am extremely proud that our superintendent, the USD 501 district's superintendent, was the one recognized for all the work that she does. And that is just something to be proud of as a district. Our employees and our students all should be very proud of that. And I wanted to say that there were some things in reading through the article, there were a lot of things that I didn't know about Dr. Anderson that I learned. And I was impressed. She's finishing up a seminary degree, and I don't know how she managed to arrange for extra hours in the day to get these things done. She doesn't sleep. I'm convinced she doesn't sleep either, Dr. Bonebright. So I think that's amazing. And then how much, Dr. Anderson, you are motivated by love to do what you do, which really resonated with me because I'm very much motivated by love also. And just you told a powerful story about a young man that passed away at another school in another area of the country, but I thought that was particularly powerful. So I just want, again, I hope I'm not stealing anyone's thunder. If someone said, I'm going to talk about that, I had no idea, but I wanted to be able to highlight that and say, Dr. Anderson, keep up the great work.
Mrs. Smith.
I echo his sentiment. It was an amazing article. You give us all something to work towards. I had a second grade teacher who passed away, and when I was at her funeral, I thought, looking at everybody there, that was a legacy. And so when I read that article and learn more about you, I'm learning about the legacy that you're creating and that you will leave long after you're gone. So something to be very proud of. I just want to say it was really exciting to have people here tonight and be able to see faces. I'm sorry, I'm the relational person. I like to see smiles, and so that was great. I was excited to be able to have some students here and get to listen to them, get to listen to the wrestlers talk. That is absolutely amazing. I would have loved to been able to play football when I went to high school, but girls weren't allowed to do that yet. The art is wonderful to have here. It's great to have some of what's going on in the district here with us. It reminds us why we do what we do. And I just also, mental health is near and dear to my heart. I have family members that struggle with mental health issues. So I always love to hear what the schools are doing when my family members had issues and they were students. It was some of Topeka Public Schools' finest that intervened to make sure some bad things didn't happen. So that is very, very important in our schools. I don't ever want to take them for granted. And we always need to be aware of what we can do to make sure that they have the resources they need to keep going. So thank you.
Ms. Stewart Campbell.
Yes, as Dr. Anderson mentioned, I'm very fortunate to get to travel next weekend with Ms. Bully and some others to San Diego for the National Association of School Boards Conference because we're Superior, because of our district winning the Magna Award. And for those who aren't familiar with the Magna Award, the Magna Award is given to school districts for their innovation in increasing student achievement. And this year's award is focused on equity. And so our award is for our pre-K-12 dual language program for removing barriers for students who are underserved. And it's it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. I mean, that's why we're on the cover of the National Association of School Board of their magazine. So I'm just so honored that our district won this and that I get to go as a, I don't know, emissary. Is that the right word? Oh, and also I wanted to say that, so this one is specific to school districts with between 5,000 and 20,000 students. So anyway, and speaking of dual language, I would like for the whole board, because this is such a big deal, a very innovative program. I think it's about time that the board hears an update, perhaps from Dr. Kipp would make sense, about how the dual language program is progressing through the grades and what attrition looks like. So how is the transition, how's it going from elementary school to middle school to high school? What is attrition like for both our native English speakers and our native Spanish speakers? And also, it was around this time last year when we all heard from Dr. Pizzat at KSDE about the seal of biliteracy. So I'm hoping that we can get an update on how many of our students this year have passed the seal of biliteracy, or if it's been given yet. I'm really not sure when it's given. And the students who have achieved the seal of biliteracy, that's a big deal. And what can we do to recognize that achievement? So if that's something, Mr. President, that we could put on an agenda for sometime maybe in April after we come back from the Magna Award. And that's all. Thanks.
Ms. Bowley.
I want to thank the Service Center for these beautiful dividers that they probably made for us. But I was wondering if they could maybe go away. Since we don't need them anymore. And I thank the craftsmanship because they are sturdy and wonderful, but that would be one request I would have. From our Personnel Committee, just a small report that I would add to is that it's this time of year that we start getting in our retirement numbers, people who are going to be retiring or possibly not coming back to our district. So right now it is about average, the same as we have every year. So that's a really good thing. And we'll keep an eye on that, and that will eventually be reported out. And so far we're looking really good. We had an all-state basketball player that was awarded at Topeka West. Elijah Brooks made the all-state first team. And so that is a hard situation to do, and he made that. And so congratulations to Topeka West family and coaches and team and Elijah Brooks. I want to state again a congratulations to Mr. Minky, because what just occurred and was reported to us is a really hard thing to gain. And it is just remarkable as this has happened for 5 years. So we owe Mr. Minky and all of his team and our district a congratulations for just having so many years of a perfect budget in public education, where funding is changing all the time. And so it is just quite remarkable. Another congratulations at this board level is to Dr. Gray. Dr. Gray received the Distinguished Staff Award for our district at this building level. And I think as board members, we all see how hard he works for our district and all the things that he does, and he does it with such enthusiasm and always a yes, ma'am, or yes, sir. And we appreciate him a lot. We had a Williams teacher, Miss Rhonda Haas, who was accepted at, she'll be going to Hutchinson. She received the Launch Learning Fellowship, and it's going to strengthen all the STEM teaching and next generation science standards will be addressed. And she is a teacher at Williams that works in our lab over there, in our space lab. So this will be a really great opportunity for her, and she's going to bring all that back to our students in elementary in that building. So that is really wonderful news. I believe our enrollment for summer school experience is open. I believe I saw that on our district. So public, it fills up fast. Get your registrations in, look that up, and apply for our summer school, extended school. There you go. And I also want to recognize our district that we are paying for 42 students at Topeka High in enrollment tuition, concurrent enrollment at Washburn University. And those students are getting an extra boost and a stronger beginning in that level. And that is because of our district doing such a nice job of making those partnerships. So overall, I think our board meeting has highlighted a lot of great things that are happening in our district. And I thank everyone for their hard work.
So the going last, everybody always grabs all of what you want to share. So just trying to think of something else to add to this. I think it's bittersweet that we're getting recognized through the Magna Award for dual language, because it was an initiative by prior board members who came on before us, long before us. And so what it has me thinking and asking is, what will our contribution be? What is the thing that we're going to do in the next 2 years or so that future boards will say, you know what, it was because this group did that. And so I'd like us to sort of think about what do we want to do? Of all the things that we could do, what should we be doing right now? I want to have that conversation. We'll have that soon. But I do want us to begin to think about, of all the things that we could do, what should we do right now coming out of COVID? And what do our students need most that'll help them be as successful as possible? So be thinking about what efforts might we receive, be recognized as through a Magna Award, that'll help our students. Just a quick, I shared it earlier, but I'll share it again. In the Finance Committee, Finance Council, we talked about checks and balances and what are those and how do we stay on top to make sure that though it sounds like through the report that we don't need it, but still as board members, we have a fiduciary responsibility to be on checks and balances. And so just for our own information, we're going to have a review of that. Other than that, I think that's it. My kids are excited to be back to school again. And I hope that our teachers are rested and well, and we look forward to 7-8 more weeks of school before summer gets here. All right.